All right, let's talk Miami Hurricanes. This is a team obviously looking to build off their performance. Wasn't a super, fantastic win last weekend, but it was a step in the right direction, certainly the way they finished. But on top of the hustle and bustle, trying to finish the season hard, the Miami Hurricanes under Coach Cristobal are making a lot of great moves for the future as well. Good sign, of course, for this Hurricanes program. It is healthy and strong. We'll get to the latest reporting there in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, this Miami Hurricanes team, they're obviously in contention to make the college football playoff, win the ACC. Every single one of their goals for 2025 is certainly in front of them, and we'll get to all that in just a second. But one of the things I look forward to, especially as we get deeper into the season, I want to see where the flips happen in the recruiting game. I want to see where the young prospects want to go. Because listen, at this point, especially in the modern era of college football, there are very few flawless teams. Even Ohio State, they've had a lot of ugly wins, and they played a relatively easy schedule, right? Miami, they've had some ups and downs. Obviously, a disappointing defeat a few weeks ago, but for the most part, they've been pretty good. And I want to see, of course, where the recruits think. Where's all the buzz? Where's the momentum? Where's the energy? Because once a program has energy, and recruiting news is the biggest indication of energy, because that's all across the country. It's not localized. You can't fake it, right? Great reporting on ESPN, or a really good social media team in your school. You can't, that can fake it, can make it look like you have a lot of buzz, but these kids deciding where to go to school, that's something you can't hide, and that's something you can't fabricate. And right now, Miami Hurricanes, they got nothing but energy in the recruiting game. Bunch of reports for you guys. Let's get into the first one here, courtesy of the great Hayes Fawcett. Highly recommend you give him a follow over on X. He says, breaking 4-star wide receiver Milan Paris has committed to Miami. He tells me for @Rivals, the 6'5", 210-pound wide receiver from Akron, Ohio, was previously committed to Iowa State. Thanks to my family, coaches, and teammates for helping me get to this point. Go Canes. All right, so obviously 4-star wide receiver from Ohio going down to South Florida. Big win for Miami, of course, but it doesn't stop there. If we get into a more recent report from Hayes Fawcett, again, you should give him a follow. 4-star defensive lineman Keyshawn Stansel has flipped his commitment from Clemson to Miami. He tells me for Rivals, the 6'4", 280-pound defensive lineman from Clayton, North Carolina, had been committed to the Tigers since June. I'm home for real this time. All right, again, I love the "I'm home for real this time" from Stansel there. Kind of an interesting comment from him. But listen, we're seeing the buzz. We're seeing the energy. We're seeing momentum, right? Miami, technically, if you want to be totally honest, has played their worst 2 weeks of football, of course, last week against Stanford and the defeat against Louisville prior to that, and they're still winning in the recruiting game. A good sign of energy, momentum, and just overall, buzz behind a program. But again, it doesn't stop there. This next report is from the Sports Rollo X account. Breaking: Canes just got a crystal ball to flip another Clemson commit, top 24/7 safety Blake Stewart. Stewart is a high priority recruit for the Canes. This is massive news. Steve Wiltfong predicted a flip. He's a 4-star safety. Wiltfong is one of the best in the business. If you're not familiar with his predictions and his crystal ball analysis, as he calls it, it's some of the best in all of the recruiting landscape. So when he says this is going to happen, or he predicts it's going to happen, it means it probably will happen. It's not guaranteed, but it's trending in a good direction. So again, let's just walk through all this again, all this recruiting news again for the Miami Hurricanes, right? They get an Ohio kid down to South Florida, 4-star wide receiver. Okay, that's good there. Wide receiver, that would make sense. Tony's doing great things. Kids want to play with that in that environment, that situation. Okay, cool. All right, defensive lineman that had been committed to Clemson from North Carolina, very long time. Get him to South Florida. Obviously, makes sense. That's a win there, right? Defensive line's been really good for Miami, so okay, it makes sense. Momentum there. And then, Cristobal to flip a safety. We obviously know the freshman safety for Miami doing some good things. Overall, this defense is really good. So again, we're seeing buzz. We're seeing momentum. We're seeing energy. And that's one of the things I really look for, because these recruits, it's so weird to me. Recruiting news and recruiting commits and flips and things like that, they are such a lagging indicator of a team being a successful perennial contender. Because a team can have one magical season, right, and do amazing things. Look at TCU a number of years ago when they made it all the way to the College Football National Championship game before getting wrecked by Miami. How about Florida State a few years ago? They had a great season. They were probably going to the playoff before they had some injuries at the end there. But they've been terrible since then, right? If we're being totally honest, right? They're terrible last year and kind of on a losing streak right now. So if you look at, these teams, pretty much every team can have a magical season, a 1 to 11 win season, just a Cinderella story, right? It happens all the time. But it doesn't lead to sustained success because these recruits, these high school kids and their coaches and their families, they can see through it, right? You could have seen TCU a few years ago and say, listen, that's not going to happen all the time. You could have even honestly seen Florida State, Mike Norvell, one good season, and after 2024, you could have said, yeah, doesn't look like they're going to be a big time contenders anytime soon, right? Everyone can see it, right? We kind of fool ourselves in the media a little bit sometimes. Oh my goodness, they had one good season, they're going to be great forever. Just because at least people like me like to be optimistic, right? We don't like to, live down in the dumps and think, oh, that was just a one-year wonder, ain't going to happen again. But the recruits, I mean, these are their lives. These are their dreams. These are their goals right in front of them, and all their mentors and support system. They're going to take some serious time and effort, and they're going to evaluate these programs and on a week by week and season by season basis. And when you see a lot of buzz and a lot of momentum towards one program in particular, like we're seeing in Miami at this point in the season, again, they're playing flawed football the past 2 weeks. But the recruits don't care because they see what is really happening in Miami, and that is perennial contention. Right, last year it felt a little bit like of a magical season for Miami, right? If we're being totally honest, Cam Ward was great and then just fell apart at the end. It stinks, but that happens. Miami in 2024 had a little bit of a magical vibe to it. 2025, right? They don't have that magic. They don't have those crazy comebacks or anything, at least not yet. I think they're a better football team. And I think that's what these recruits noticed, right? They don't have any of those crazy magical moments, the Cam Ward, incredible stuff, the number one overall draft pick, taking over and winning games just on the back of his sheer willpower and talent. They don't have that this year. They're a much better, much more well-rounded football team. It's sustainable success. It's NFL talent on every level. It's playing freshmen. It's playing seniors. It's right across the board. It's good coaching. And recruits notice that. And recruits' parents, coaches, mentors, everybody notices that. And they'll be the first one to tell you because they will vote. They will make their decision with their commitments, with their announcements, right? They will tell you who's playing the best football, who's set up for sustained success, right? It's one of those weird things. What comes first, chicken or egg? Are you a sustained champion because you get a lot of great recruits, or do you get a lot of great recruits going to you because they think you're going to be great? I actually think it's the second one, right? And now part of it is the sales job of the program. You got to sell that vision. But I tell you what, sales in today's day and age only goes so far, right? It's almost a tiebreaker. Because of all these games and social media and all the information in front of us that everybody has, high school kids included, right? And their coaches and parents, of course, too. They can look at a team and they can hear the sales pitch and be like, yeah, I'm not buying it. I watched you on Saturday and things don't look good. I read the papers or read online or whatever, and things don't look great about you. I read the blog sites, things don't look great. But with Miami, it's different, right? Even when they're good this year, obviously, but even when they're not playing the best football, all these recruits, all these high school kids, they're looking at the Hurricanes and they're saying, okay, what they're doing right now, the research I'm doing, talking about one of these high school kids or their coaches or parents, and saying, this is a good football team, this is a good program, and they're going to stay this way for a very long time. They're going to develop me, they're going to put me in the National Football League if I'm good enough, and we're going to win a lot of football games, and we're going to be extremely good. Coach Cristobal is a good coach. He's willing to make changes. He's got a good staff. And folks, that's what these high school kids are telling you. And it speaks to, again, the great job Miami is doing in terms of the program they've set up, right? And that's where this thing goes full circle. You can have that magical season with Cam Ward, but can you build off of that? Most programs can't. TCU couldn't when they had their magical season a few years ago, right? For example, right? Florida State hasn't, right? To pick on that example. I mean, look at Texas. I mean, they're really struggling in a lot of ways right now. And, they have Arch Manning. They're supposed to be great. They have all that money, right? I mean, the reality is, can you build sustained success? The good programs can. Notre Dame is a great example of certainly they can. LSU, certainly not, right? They're gone. Fire their coach. That's how it works in big-time college football. The recruits see what Miami is doing, and they're like, we want to go with Coach Cristobal. We want to go with his staff because they're doing everything right. And, folks, that is great news for the Hurricanes, and it speaks to an incredible job by this Miami coaching staff. They're getting these moves done. They're finding a way to, obviously, in terms of what they're doing on the field, how they've built the program, and how they've communicated to the recruits, A+ on their effort for sure. And this is, guys, a great sign for the future of Miami, right? These recruits, I've said this before, and I just want to end on this before I want to ask you guys my question for you guys to answer in the comments, is that it is a leading indicator, When recruits make decisions, that's what happens when a program is about to become even better. And this is what we're seeing from the Miami Hurricanes. They're already good, but all the energy and buzz of a good team, that can fade. What we're seeing from these recruits is a sign that Miami's here for sustained success. And that, my friends, is a really good sign if you're a fan of the U. All right, we got a little bit more to get to today, but first, I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. Obviously, the Hurricanes with some great recruiting news, some big-time moves on that front. But what's one thing that concerns you about the future of this Miami program, right? What's the question mark? Is it ability to maybe recruit quarterback position? That's something that could be a concern, right? You went from Cam Ward to Carson Beck. Like, How about recruiting and developing somebody in-house? To me, that's something that jumps off the page. But what's another concern, and from your perspective, from a fan or follower of the Miami Hurricanes, let us know something that worries you about the future of this program. Put it in the comment section below. But without further ado, let's get to the matchup this weekend against SMU. And here's the matchup predictor, courtesy of ESPN Analytics. Miami right now has a pretty good chance of winning this one, 70% chance to win according to ESPN Analytics. SMU, despite this game being in Texas, is only has a 30% chance to win. So the analytics really favors the Hurricanes there. How about the odds makers, the smart money as it usually is? The ESPN Bet Sportsbook currently has the Hurricanes at an 11.5 point favorite. They opened up as a 10.5 point favorite, so money has only moved to Miami, and not very much money, if any at all, has moved to SMU, despite SMU having some familiarity, of course, with the Hurricanes, and they're a pretty solid football team overall. I think Miami showed a lot of people in the second half of that Stanford game that, a lot of mental toughness, right? Obviously, they answered every single challenge the first, third of the season or so and passed with flying colors. Disappointment against Louisville, slow start against Stanford, and then they showed that mental toughness to finish them out and end with a dominating victory, scoreboard, yards, everything you want to look for in a big physical performance. Miami got it done against the Stanford Cardinal last week. And I think that opened up a lot of people's eyes and said, okay, this is a team that can overcome some adversity. They can deal with some issues. First ugly half, are things reeling? Nope, they settled down and they dominate. And I think people feel better about this team going into this big-time road game. Now, I don't think it'll be easy. I think it'll be a challenge. Honestly, I think this game is going to be closer than the 11.5 point spread. This feels like a 28-20 kind of game, 27-20 to be totally honest, right? SMU's kind of feisty. This is basically for their season, right? They fall to 5-4. After making the playoff last year, they were again kind of that miracle team, magical team. This is their chance to prove that they're not one and done. They're not one-hit wonders. And I think they kind of are, but they're going to come out with guns a-blazing. The entire coaching staff saying, listen, we can't get it 4 losses. That derails our long-term goals. It moves them squarely into that one-hit wonder kind of category from last year. I think they're going to come out hyper-aggressive. I think they're going to empty, all their bullets in their chamber, and it's going to be hard for Miami, I think, for the first half, maybe for the first 2.5 quarters or so. But we saw last week that this team has mental toughness, and I think the talent and just the guts and the experience in key positions of this Hurricanes team will prevail. I think they win this game. I think they win it, probably not covering, but I feel 27-20. I think they probably take the lead and they hold the lead in the fourth quarter and then ice the game with a nice long drive. That's kind of the vibe I get. Maybe it comes down to a final defensive stop, but either way, that's how I feel this Miami Hurricanes team comes away with a big win, and they right the ship as they head into the final third of the regular season.